So bats in New Zealand have developed an incredibly interesting survival strategy as a result of their natural predator, the Ruru, the moorpork. And so they found back in the old days that the Ruru and moorpork, they would sit outside the bat's crevice, its roost tree, and as the bats emerged, the Ruru would swoop down, boomfa, and eat the bats. The Ruru would figure out that that was their roost tree, and it would just sit outside that roost tree every night and eat those bats. So the bats evolved. They developed a strategy that meant that they shifted their roost tree every night or two. And so they would shift that roost tree sometimes 1 kilometre away, and that would move outside of that Ruru's home range and essentially trick that predator. So that predator didn't know when they were going to be home at that particular roost tree, and sitting outside that roost tree would become a waste of time for that predator. The value and reward would be lower than the effort that it took waiting for the bats to come back to that tree. It's been a really important survival strategy for the bats throughout the introduction of introduced predators as well. Their number one predator really is cats. And so cats, they have the same predatory behaviour as their natural predator, the Ruru, and the cats would sit outside that roost tree as well, sometimes known to have up to 200 or 300 individual bats inside their stomachs that they've eaten at any one time. But those bats keep changing their roost tree, and they move outside that cat's home range, and the cats haven't figured out how to follow those bats around in that cycle. Interestingly though, bats, they can travel up to 20 kilometres in any one night, which is a huge area. And so when we're talking about looking after a bat population through trapping, it's a very difficult thing to do because 20 kilometres is a massive area. It's a huge investment of traps on the ground to be able to protect those bats in that territory. And so we rely quite heavily on identifying where those roost trees are, putting predator control around those particular roost trees, and hopefully they're in clusters where we can create a block or a project around a cluster of roost trees, and therefore they are not being predated upon by cats, possums, rats, stoats, etc. Bats are kind of cool though, because they encourage us to think about large landscape control. They encourage us to think about, hey, what does predator control look like on a 20 kilometre level? And that's really important to us in predator control as well. They encourage us to talk about controlling cats, which is a touchy subject for people, and they encourage us to talk about really massive predator control networks. So as well as the bat's natural strategy of moving roosts every 1 to 2 nights, and therefore outsmarting the cats and the moorporks, the Ruru, we are able to put site-specific predator control around them, either around that roost tree or either around a cluster of roost trees, and we're able to think about controlling predators on a much larger landscape, say 20 kilometres, which is huge. So really cool behavioural strategy I thought I'd share with you with bats. I think they're fascinating, I think they're cool, and also a little bit around how we look after them with roost trees and clusters of roost trees.